Hey guys, what's up? We are back with another video today. I am the Chicago Sports Network, and
I'm the Lincoln Stevens Show, and today we have our Bears mock draft for you.
Let's get started with today's video. So I will start off with my pick, and then we'll go back and forth throughout the Bears' 8 picks. There are no trades in this mock draft. As always, make sure you like this video, whether you're on whichever channel, subscribe to both channels, and if you're watching this on my channel, go subscribe to his and vice versa. And let's get started with today's video. So at number 20, I have Tevin Jenkins, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma State. And for most of my Bears mock drafts, at least the last two, I have had the Bears drafting Tevin Jenkins. He's just kind of like the fan favorite and kind of the consensus pick for if the Bears stay at number 20 for who they should draft, partly because he's a tackle and partly because he's a right tackle in particular. And with the Bears cutting Bobby Massey, it really helps that you're able to add a tackle at that Bobby Massey position because Tevin Jenkins was a 4-year starter at right tackle and not at left tackle, which a lot of the tackles were in this draft class.
Same here with the 20th overall pick for me. I have him picking Tevin Jenkins. I used the Pro Football Focus mock draft. They gave me an A- draft grade on that one. Their right tackle is Jermaine Afidi. Definitely replaceable, and like you said, Tevin Jenkins being a 4-year starter at right tackle, you have Charles Leno at left, so you don't really need a left tackle, but right tackle could definitely be upgraded, and this can really help boost the running game and help David Montgomery get some open holes because he is a very talented running back and can help Andy Dalton stay upright in this backfield.
Yeah, and the thing that he pointed out before is that Tevin Jenkins really works well in a run game. Especially in a zone blocking system that the Bears use. I think that he will do really well, and he'll be able to create holes and be able to run down the field and not just be really slow. He is very athletic and semi-fast for the offensive tackle, so I think that he'll be a great replacement for Bobby Massey or now Jermaine Ifedi or Alex Bars. At number 52, I have Afuto Melon Fanu. I know I'm saying that wrong. Cornerback out of Syracuse. But the reason why I like him so much is because he's a tall, strong guy with a lot of potential. And I think that he has a lot of potential, and that's one of the reasons why I like him more than some of the other guys, is because at this position, because he is able to develop and have a higher ceiling, in which the Bears are able to develop that better than most teams, especially with the type of system that they run where he has a lot of pressure lifted off of him with Eddie Jackson being a safety and Jalen Johnson on the opposite side and Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn or Akeem Hicks rushing the passer. He has a lot less pressure on him than some other quarterbacks put in the situation. And an example of this was Jeff Okudah. Jeff Okudah really struggled last year against a lot of number 1 wide receivers, even though he was the number 3 overall pick, and Jalen Johnson played a lot better in the Bears system because he has Kyle Fuller opposite of him. So I think that's kind of the same thing here.
Yeah, so at 52 for me, I have the Bears taking Elijah Moore, wide receiver from Ole Miss. The Bears definitely need another pass catcher. Anthony Miller is not any good. With Elijah Moore being 5'9", he brings you a really talented slot receiver. He's not going to be anybody that's most likely going to go out wide, but he is somebody that can give you a big play threat, somebody who can go over the middle and catch passes for you if you need him to. Pretty much just all-around amazing receiver. Probably going to be looking at him to put him in the slot, which is really good because then you have Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney on the outsides, especially Mooney being young and super athletic and fast. And Robinson, I know he's getting a little older. I think he's 28 or 29 now, but he's such a reliable target. And this is what this Bears offense needs to really help them out.
Yeah, I agree with that pick. I think if Elijah Moore was there for me, I would have picked him 100%, but he wasn't there for me. So I went cornerback, which I think is like kind of the third biggest need on this team. Wide receiver is the fourth biggest need in my opinion, just because I would rather not start Desmond Trufant, and I'm fine with starting a random wide receiver in the later rounds that I can draft. So just kind of depends on. I just think that there's a lot of good wide receivers in this draft class, and it's so deep that it's better to pick a cornerback in a really weak cornerback class compared to some other ones, and a generally weak secondary class in general. So at number 83 overall, Speaking of the secondary, I picked Jamar Johnson, safety out of Indiana. So again, going with the defense, and I understand that a lot of Bears fans are going to be like, "Why didn't you pick a quarterback, or a wide receiver, or anybody else?" There just wasn't any quarterbacks available. The best quarterback available was I think, I don't even think Jamie Newman was available at this pick. But even if he was, I think he's more of a fourth or fifth round guy, a day 3 project, not a day 2 guy. So I'm like, Jamar Johnson, he's really risen up boards after people started to look at his Ohio State tape and how well he's played throughout the year. I think he started risen up boards, and him opposite of Eddie Jackson again with the pressure. He doesn't have a lot of pressure put on him that he has to succeed right away. We would like him to, but at the same time, he's able to do what he needs to do the same way that Eddie Jackson was able to play and play well when Adrian Amos was in his system. So I think that it released a lot of pressure, and I think this will really, really upgrade the Bears secondary. And even though they re-signed Travis Gibson, it may be something else, but they signed Gibson back. I still think that you could use a more talented guy in Jamar Jefferson. So I think that it's a massive upgrade there, and there just wasn't a wide receiver, and there wasn't a quarterback available at this pick. So I was just kind of disappointed in that there wasn't any guy available for me to pick.
With my 83rd overall pick, I too went with the secondary, but I took Thomas Graham Jr., cornerback from Oregon. Kind of going back to his take on Melifonwu, you got to replace Desmond Trufant. You don't want him starting in particular. And Thomas Graham Jr. to me is a really good pick here. The Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator has it as an A- draft grade, so they think he's a good prospect, which then again it is Pro Football Focus. So that it could be scary, me getting all these good picks right for the Bears. But they just need another corner to get Trufant out of that starting corner role. Maybe put him at like a nickel corner or slot corner, something like that.
Or at least make him compete for the position. Make him win it.
And Thomas Graham Jr. brings a ball hawking ability. He's got really good speed, can play man or zone. I just like him overall as a prospect.
Okay. So with the 164th pick, the Bears' 5th round pick, they do not have a 4th round pick due to the trade for Travis Gibson. That's the Travis Gibson I was talking about.
I think the safety's Tayshaun Gibson.
Tayshaun Gibson, that's who I was thinking of. With the trade with the Vikings last year, so they do not have their 4th round pick. At 164, I drafted Milton Williams, defensive lineman out of Louisiana. Tech, just a monster. Just go look at his his height, weight measurements. I think he is just such a monster there. And I think he could replace a guy like Bilal Nichols just athletically. And I know that a lot of Bears fans are going to be very disappointed in me that I haven't picked but one offensive player in this draft. But at the same time, there just wasn't anybody available. I think the best wide receiver available was like Cornell Powell. And I think of him more as a 6th round guy, not a 5th round guy. So I'm like, it's just tough for me when this guy is so good and so athletically gifted to not pick this guy. And to be honest, in my opinion, I think the Bears should just tank this season. Or Ryan Pace will do that for us. So it's not like that's a big issue. But I think that if the Bears' schedule is just so difficult this year, so you might as well pick best player available here and draft a quarterback in one of the best quarterback classes that I've seen in a while in the 2022 quarterback class. It doesn't have the same talent at the top as this one does with Trevor, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, but it has the depth that this class does not have, because once you get past those 5 quarterbacks, I really don't think any of them are going to become starters in the NFL. Maybe Kellen Mond if he goes to the right team, and maybe Jamie Newman if he goes to the right team and develops, but that's about it.
Yeah, going back to those quarterbacks, I think Sam Ellinger will actually be the best once you get past the top 5. I like Ellinger a lot, and I think he really fits the mold for this new style of NFL. He can throw it, and he can run it, and he can take some hits. But at 164, I have the Bears taking Kendrick Green, guard out of Illinois. Just kind of help repair this O-line just a little bit. It's not the best O-line, I mean, I think they were 29th in yards per carry last year, rushing wise. And they didn't, I think they were even, no, maybe it was 29th in rushing touchdowns last year and like 21st in yards per carry. It was just not a good running offense last year. And so adding Kendrick Green can really help this offensive line out a good bit to really help trying to get that running game back. Because that's another reason. You can't blame everything on Mitch Trubisky, especially whenever he has no running game at all.
I think he's looking at my notes here or something because I'm still the president of the Mitchell Trubisky fan club.
Yeah. Make sure you go watch his first video. He actually calls him Mitchell Trubinsky.
That was bad. That was 2 years ago. That was like 4 years ago now. Oh, maybe 3. But it's coming up on the anniversary of my channel. That was a while ago. But yeah. So here's the only problem that I have with that pick. I agree with it depth-wise, but I agree with it being at 164. But the problem that I have is that you already have Cody Whitehair and James Daniels at guard, which is 2 second-round picks, and both, I think both have made Pro Bowls. I know Cody Whitehair has definitely made a Pro Bowl. I don't know if James Daniels has. But they're both really good guards, solid players, and especially in a zone blocking scheme, they're pretty good. So I disagree with the need value there, but he's a good player available at that position.
Yeah, that's kind of what I went for, is that you need some depth, and he was best player available. So I think once you get in these later rounds, it's best player available over team needs. And if it coincides with a team need, well, that's great. But if it doesn't, you just look for best player available.
Yeah. That's when Ryan Pace does his best. He picks best player available. Eddie Jackson, Tariq Cohen, Darnell Mooney. Like, can you just pick the best player available, Ryan Pace? Like, seriously. Stop screwing everything up. Whenever he picks best player available, he looks like a genius. But whenever he tries to pick the guy, like, based on positional need, he just screws it all up.
It's those first-round picks.
Well, yeah, it's those first-round, but it's also those second-round picks when he went after Adam Shaheen. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, even though I love Cole Kmet, don't get me wrong, I love him.
You could have waited.
It was a reach.
Yeah.
You could have gotten Antoine Winfield with that second pick, and imagine that secondary of Jalen Johnson, Kyle Fuller, Antoine Winfield, and Eddie Jackson, rather than having a backfield of now Jalen Johnson, Eddie Jackson, Tayshaun Gibson, and Desmond Trufant. And you could have drafted a tight end like Harrison Bryant, maybe Cole Kmet in the 3rd round. But
honestly, Harrison Bryant is just as good as Cole Kmet. Yeah. In different ways, but just as good.
I think Cole Kmet will be the best tight end in the draft because I think he will succeed. But at the same time, just based on where he was in the draft, I just don't think that was the right decision. Yeah. But either way, I don't want to make this video too long. At pick 204, I have Derek Barnes, linebacker out of Purdue. Just again, another athletic freak that just, man, I think he's like 6'5", I think he is. And he has like crazy length. Played really well at Purdue and is, I feel like, being very undervalued because he played in a poor, like a very bad Purdue program. Even though there's a lot of talent out of Purdue from Derek Barnes and Rondale Moore. So I really think that he is a great pickup there and a steal in the 6th round.
At 204, I took Zach McPherson, cornerback out of Texas Tech. The reason I took another corner is just because, once again, Desmond Trufant is not that good. You kick him out, start Thomas Graham, and then you could have Zach McPherson at slot corner, or if you want to switch those two, it doesn't really matter. Then you have probably a top 5 secondary in the NFL if you do that.
And the one thing go ahead.
And then Eddie Jackson is just a monster at free safety, and Tayshaun Gibson isn't too bad in his own right.
And the one thing that I would say about that is most people forget in 2018, the thing that carried us the most was that the quarterbacks had nowhere to throw the ball in the secondary, so Khalil Mack always got you, and that's why we were so good, was because nobody could get anywhere with the ball. So that's why Roquan Smith had interceptions, and Eddie Jackson had so many of them because they just shouldn't have been throwing it there because you have Prince Amukamara in his prime. You had Kyle Fuller in his prime. You had A.D. Jackson, Adrian Amos. That was the strength of that team, was the secondary, not the pass rush.
Now it's Packers got Adrian Amos.
Gosh, I hate that. Hate that. At 208, I have Christian Uphoff, safety at Illinois State. Another underrated prospect, and I know you guys are like, why aren't you picking offense? You'll see in a second with my offensive picks. But he was just best player available. And I think that depth-wise and picking a hometown kid, I would like you to go look at my comments. I said before the NFL draft last year, please somebody look at James Robinson. If you need me to take screenshots of my comments, I can go do that. But James Robinson was a beast out of Illinois State. I'm a big Illinois State fan. Christian Uphoff is going to be a great player. If your team drafts him in the right situation, he has to be put in. He can't start right away. He's not going to be a starter. But with development, he has the skills. And the other thing that's kind of underlying is that the Bears don't have a kickoff guy particularly, and Christian Uphoff can return kickoffs and has returned a couple for touchdowns. I think he returned 4 in college for touchdowns. So I think with that, it really helps him develop and he can do special teams as well. So I think it's good to get a guy that can play special teams in the later rounds.
Yeah, always. Special teams is always good to increase. At 208, I took Justin Hilliard, linebacker from Ohio State. Once again, just going best player available. Could potentially replace Danny Trevathan or Robert Quinn. Probably looking at more of a depth guy for when one of these guys leaves. But he's just a great guy. A lot of people even have him like third-round talent. Some people even have him going third or fourth round. And with Robert Quinn being 30, Hilliard could definitely be replacing him soon.
And the one thing that I would say about that is that we lost Bartevius Mingo this offseason, so he would be the Bartevius Mingo replacement as a Bears fan. That's something that I know, but almost nobody else knows because not everybody follows the Bears, and that's just a minute move. But he would be a great Bartevius Mingo replacement. At number 221, I have the second offensive player off in this draft. Went Felipe Franks, quarterback out of Arkansas. I understand why nobody likes him. I understand it. But he is just a modern quarterback in the sense that he is enough. He's mobile enough. He's not like a statue, the same way Kyle Trask is. He has okay deep ball accuracy, and he's 6'5", 250. And to be honest, some rumors have been that he could play at tight end. And to be honest, even though everybody joked about how many tight ends the Bears have, I think the Bears cut Jimmy Graham after the draft because they're not going to get Russell Wilson, and then you can have another guy to be a player in the tight end room that is going to look very weak, but most people don't think about that because we had so many tight ends last year that everybody kind of joked about it. We don't have a lot now.
Quick fact, going to Felipe Franks potentially being a tight end. The guy that offered up that idea originally was also the scout for the Patriots back whenever they took Julian Edelman and turned him from a quarterback to a receiver. Now he works for ESPN, I believe. But yeah,
that's
interesting stuff there.
Right there.
Interesting stuff there. We're at 221, right?
Correct,
yeah. At 221, I have the Bears taking Frank Darby, wide receiver from Arizona State. Once again, just the best player available type of pick. They have Anthony Miller, who is definitely going to be replaced. And really, after Anthony Miller, they don't have anybody starting caliber. Whereas Frank Darby, you develop him for a little bit. So if they follow my mock draft, you take Elijah Moore, you start him in the slot, then Anthony Miller can be your fourth guy and really develop Frank Darby for a year or two, and then you can put him in and he's ready to be a playmaker.
And remember this, in this style of NFL, you need 4 starting wide receivers. You don't need 3, you don't need 2 anymore. You need 4 starting wide receivers. So if you're going to be able to compete in the NFL, you need a 4 starting wide receiver. And speaking of a 4 starting wide receiver, at number 228, I have Josh Ibitour-Bebe, wide receiver out of Illinois. This is kind of a sneaky pick for most Bears fans and most Bears mock drafts. Kind of a local kid coming out of Illinois and has potential to be a 5th or 4th round guy. But he fell to me all the way in the 6th round, and I'm definitely taking him. Just a great wide receiver, able to develop him, and we should be able to see some results from him as a 4th or 5th caliber wide receiver. and he's just better than Javon Wims or Riley Ridley because he doesn't punch guys and he can catch a ball. That's about the reasoning.
I think it was Wims that dropped that wide open pass touchdown against the Saints.
That changed all the momentum. I think if he catches that, the Bears may win that game because hear me out. Just hear me out. The Bears defense wasn't allowing anything.
I've been hearing you out since that game.
He's got to catch
just
that.
Like that double doinker from the playoff. I've been hearing him out since that one. Since then,
we would have won the Super Bowl that year.
I'm telling you,
we would have won the Super Bowl.
3 years.
We would have won the Super Bowl.
At 228, I have the Bears taking Sam Ellinger, quarterback out of Texas. Andy Dalton isn't the answer, and neither is Nick Foles. So I could see him just drafting Sam Ellinger. I like Sam Ellinger a lot. I think he's going to be a starter in the NFL. At some point in his career, not necessarily a good starter, but I think he'll be a starter.
Are you trying to ruin the Bears franchise here? Because
honestly,
all
I think
the Bears
Ellinger,
starter are like number 32 in the NFL.
If you draft Ellinger, I wouldn't be surprised if he started by like week 7.
Here's the thing. I understand that pick because Tom Herman is a Bears head coach, and Tom Herman's probably going to push for him in the 6th round just because the Bears have 4 6th-round picks. So probably one of them's going to be Sam Ellinger. But it will be interesting. It'll be interesting. So as always, make sure you hit the 2 videos down below for me and his channel. I think his 2 videos are right over here. And make sure you hit the subscribe button up here for me. And hit his subscribe button whether you're watching on my channel or his channel. As always, have a great day. Bye.